without further ado, Dr. Nicole, take it away.
Hey, I am here, but unfortunately, I cannot start my video again.
Oh, goodness, I'm so sorry. Hold on.
So I just,
it should be coming on momentarily.
Really, let's see. It's gonna click on in just a second. I am here. I'm excited. I'm ready to get going because this is a lot to talk about. It's a very deep subject, but we're gonna get to it. Hopefully I can get the video. If not, you don't really have to see me anyway, but I am here.
We want to see your lovely face.
Oh, that's okay. Why is it?
Let me see. It says your host. Oh, I think it's coming on. It's coming on. There you go.
Hey, I am here. All right. So Terry, left your message as well too about these videos. Okay. So I am here. So we are in the new video generation, y'all. So we just make it do what we have to do when we have to. Again, I am so excited to be here again. So this is workshop number 3. And we have covered a lot over these last 3 months. And this by far is probably one of the most important ones I'm most excited about. We have a lot of information to cover today because when we're talking about paying for college, that's when it gets really serious. For me anyway, you know how I feel about amassing a lot of loan debt. So let me go ahead and share my screen real quick and get this started so we can get moving. All right. So here I am, Dr. Nicole Henderson with you again from Collegiate Bridge. And we are here to help families, parents understand how to navigate college successfully, and ultimately students graduate with the least amount of college debt, which is ultimately our goal. And this, as we said, is our 3rd workshop in our Bridge to College workshop series. And our first one, you know, we kind of talked, we started with that whole admissions, getting all of the, you got through the college process, you got the admissions in, and then what were the steps in determining how to choose the right college? We went through that one. And then you got that college decision made. And then we talked about, okay, what is the next steps? What do you have to do? What's the strategies getting from that decision of selecting the college to actually enrolling in the fall? And here we are now today that we got to pay for it now. And how are we going to pay for this with understanding it without going into massive debt? So that's what we're going to talk about today. As I said, this is a lot of information. It's very, it's a lot of different pieces to it. So I'm going to try to break it down into little manageable pieces today and our short time together in this chat and chew. I'm hoping that you did grab something to eat since this is lunchtime, and we're going to chat, we're going to chew, and I'm here to answer questions as we move through it, okay? So I want to start with this first. Why I say this is so critical. I want you to know this number, and I think since I captured this number, it has increased maybe slightly. But $53,000 is the average loan debt for after 4 years for minority students. Minority students overwhelmingly take out more loan debt than any of their counterparts, which is why I said it's this critical in having to understand the whole college financial aid and paying for college. It has drastically changed from what it was even 10 years ago, let alone 20 or 30 years ago. And it is constantly changing every day. And COVID also has made it change. So we constantly have to stay on top of this piece around understanding paying for college, loan debt, and trying to avoid loan debt. So here's the key to understand too, with this $53,000, why I put this out here and I want you to kind of be aware of it, is that $53,000 is that amount. Just think about how long that would take to pay off $53,000. The average time that it would take to pay off that amount of loan debt is 25 years. 25 years. So the whole point of our children going to college and creating and earning degrees and creating a career is so that they can start building this future, so that when they come out and graduate, they want to start being able to save for down payment on a home or investment or creating a business. But if they're already in $53,000 worth of debt or more, that sets them back from that. So that is why it is so important that we try to minimize this loan debt as far as possible. I mean, as much as possible, because of the impact on your child's future when they graduate. And this is just undergrad, right? So I'm just talking about the first 4 years undergrad. So depending on your child's dreams and goals and aspirations, we're more than likely talking about master's level as well, to graduate school to get the master's degree. And what about professional school for med school, law school, doctoral degrees? So we're even talking about more. So we want to make sure we're minimizing as much loans at this undergrad level before we get to that next level in that graduate level, before we get to, I'm sorry, when we get to the graduate level from the undergraduate level. All right. So with that, first things first, I think is important. As I said, it's a lot of information here, so I'm going to try to just chunk it so it makes sense. But first things first, we got to know where the funding sources are and where the money comes from, so that you can make sure that you are tapping into every single funding source of where money is. So the four main sources of where college funding money comes from, and I call it funding because you got to tap in all of these to try to get as much money as possible. Federal government is number one. They have the grants, work study, there's loans that is also offered by the federal government, and also Parent Plus loans. So the federal government, for the most part, will have the grants and work study. Most of the grants from government is need-based. If you hear that term, need-based, for the most part, means that it's based on financial situation. That's what need, finances, that's together. That's how the government looks at it. Their money, for the most part, is attached to what the financial situation looks like. Then you have the state government, okay? Every single state government offers some type of financial assistance, all right? They can offer grants, they can offer scholarships, they can offer an internship, it just depends. But every single one does. Maryland has a really great system. If you have not been to the state government site for Maryland, you need to do that ASAP. I am going to see if I can pull this up for a second for you. I wanted you to take a look at it. Can you see this page that I have up here? This is actual, you can see it?
Looks good.
Perfect. So this is actually the Maryland Higher Education Commission website. Please take note of it. You should be on this website if you have not yet. There is tons of resources and grants and scholarships out here that you need to be aware of. There's transfer scholarships out here if your child is going to start at a community college and then transfer. Okay, so there's a lot, there's part-time work. I was actually really impressed with the amount of support that I see here for the state of Maryland. All states do not have this level of support. So please take note of this, get out here and dig into this site. Please click on every last one of these links so you can find out which ones you qualify for or your child qualifies for in this situation. What are deadlines? Some of the deadlines may have passed already because we are into April, but don't get discouraged, because even if it's a grant or a scholarship that you are eligible for, keep it on your list, because guess what? You can come back next year and also try to apply again and see if the eligibility remains each year. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit, because, you know, getting through college is 4 years to get to that bachelor's degree, right? So we have to be talking about paying for college for 4 years, not one. Right now, it's just that freshman year we're looking at for the most part, but we're really talking about 4. So take a look at that. I think this is really Important because this is another one of the big pools of money that parents often miss, that they don't realize that each state also has money. Now, there's criteria for each of them. Sometimes some states will not award the money if the child is going out of states, other states will not. You will have to look at each one of these particular programs, grants, scholarships, and see what the eligibility is. If your child is in state, you definitely need to be over here on this page and finding out what monies are here as well too. Because think about it, as I've always said, you want to find all the funding sources and you want to stack this money where you can. All right. Perfect. All right. So let me get back over here to the other sources. Other sources, the university and or college where your child has accepted and will be going. All colleges and universities, of course, to the financial aid office. I'm sure all of you are aware of that at this point, have been in contact with the financial aid office. Financial aid offices are offering the scholarships. Schools can also offer grants. They can offer things like tuition waivers. They do tuition discounts. And here's two other sources, parents, that you need to dig into at the college or university if you have not yet. The department, each department on a college campus has potential to have money in scholarships in the department. So what is the department? Well, that is the department that will house the major that your child is interested in, right? So if they're interested in psychology, then you will contact the psychology department and actually go online. You can find faculty members, find someone who looks interested, send them an email, see if you can connect with them and start talking to them. I always tell families to start with the chair of the department. That's called the chairman. They usually just call them the chair. Start there. Introduce yourself. Say, my child is coming there. They're interested in psychology. They'd love to speak with you about majoring in psychology at the university. Faculty members love to talk to students. They will love to do that. They love to talk to parents. Start there. Here's the thing, why this is another place to dig into possible money. Because if you connect with the right faculty member, the chair of the department who really loves you and say, oh my gosh, I would love you to be part of my program, our department, they may have scholarships available. They may have work opportunities in their department. A faculty member may be looking for students to work on a research project. And they may say, hey, I'm looking for students who you want to work on research with me. All means of finding additional monies. Because think of it this way, every dollar that you find, whether it's a scholarship, a grant, work study, working on campus, anything reduces the amount of loans that you have to take out. And that's what you have to always remember. So you have to look at paying for college from different sources, not just scholarships and grants. That in and of itself, more than likely, will not be the only way to get a totally free ride to go to college. Scholarships is a big piece of it that you can control, but there's other things as parents that you can do as well too. Okay, so remember the department, look into the chair of the department, connect with the chair of the department. You can find all of that online. Just go to the website, go to the department and the academic affairs. Academic affairs is the term or the department on college campuses that houses all the academics. So that's where the faculty are and the courses and the classes. And then student affairs is outside that. And that's where all of the stuff that supports students financially and advising and the library and tutoring, all of that is housed on that side of the campus. And that's actually where my background is. So my background actually as a Dean of Student Affairs is I ran all of the other side of the college that really supported students in being successful on college, in college and getting students through college, which is why I know all of the different areas because I had to integrate them all to help students be successful from that freshman year all the way through graduation. And I love sharing all of this with you now, right? And then the other place to check on the college campus is the foundation. Yes, many foundation departments on college campuses have tons of scholarships, all right? And every college and university does it different. Some actually have the scholarships just sitting over there with the foundation. Some will contact the financial aid office and say, we have this scholarship here that one of our alumni has created for students, and we're looking for a student for it. Sometimes they have them. What I always tell parents and students to do is go directly to the foundation yourself. Again, nice little email, introduce yourself, who you are, your interest areas, what you plan to major in, and you're looking for potential scholarships that they may be aware of. And you'll be surprised. Sometimes they actually will have scholarships there. Again, depending on college and university, they actually could have a scholarship in the department that they just received or just learned about or just set up, and they haven't even sent it to the financial aid office yet, or they have been looking for students and no one has applied for it. Some have applications you have to apply for, some award them, and usually they say only thing you have to do is send a thank you letter to the family. Some of it is very easy money that could potentially be sitting over there. I have helped students find money in foundations for alumni who graduated from an institution and said, I want to give a minority student who's majoring in nursing a $1,500 scholarship. So they then have to try to locate the students. And sometimes if you go there directly before they located the student, they would be willing to work with you. Again, I'm talking in generalities, remember this, because every institution is different. But what I'm saying here, you can more than likely dig in and check at the institution where you're going to be going. And then the last place for funding is, of course, the private organizations. So private organizations that have scholarships, could be merit, need-based. The local scholarships are huge. Locally where you live, where you work, there's scholarship monies there. Local scholarships often are not very large, but they add up. There's talent-based scholarships, and then there's private loans also outside of what is granted from the government, right? So those are basically your four sources. The other source, of course, is just private pay. If you can just pay out of pocket, and there are some who, parents and or families who do that. The majority do not, however. All right, I want to stop right here quickly and check and see if there's any questions around what I just covered and understanding all the different funding sources or where you should be checking for money to pay for college. Any questions?
Yep. There's a few questions in the chat. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Go ahead.
Perfect. There's a few questions in the chat. I'll go through them. So
okay.
The application, the website you went through the first, the student and parent asked about is just for Maryland schools. So like the state funding is just used for just schools within the state of Maryland.
So you would really have to look at each one of those that's offered and see how it is set up. Typically, state funding will only support a student that remains in the state. That is the purpose of the state funding. They're trying to keep their students in the state so they offer more money. That's typical. Every now and then, there's some exceptions. So you would just have to look individually at each one of them because there's so many different ones listed for Maryland.
Yeah.
But if they are attending a Maryland institution, definitely you want to look at that.
Yeah, and I know with sometimes if a student is majoring in something that's not offered in the state, then it may be able to be used, but that's like maybe marine science, maybe like one of them that may not be offered. But if you can find in a state, a school within the state of Maryland, you can't use it outside the state. And then you have a couple questions about foundation. So parents ask, like, is that separate money than what's already offered? And is foundations the same thing as donors?
The foundation is the same thing as donors, and it could be separate from what's already offered. Again, it just depends. So that is donors to the institution that is giving money and setting up scholarships. It could be businesses, it could be individuals. It could be additional monies outside of what's already offered, because sometimes, again, depending on the institution, some foundations keep their scholarship and their donor money totally separate and they manage it. And sometimes they will reach out to different people on campus and departments looking for students. I can share a case, as I said, as a Dean of Student Affairs, I often had the foundation reach out to me and say, we have received this money from a donor and we're looking for X, Y, and Z student that we can award this money to. And it has not gone through the financial aid office at that point. Now, once I work with the foundation, recommend this student, and they go through all the application, the process, then it is possible at that point that they will then send the money. We'll have to go to the financial aid office to be awarded, but it could be separate depending on the institution.
Thank you. We have one question that just popped up.
Okay, sure.
What would be the best way to find the foundation/donors, especially if you're looking at schools outside of the state?
I'm so sorry. Can I interrupt, please? I am so sorry. It's Shamel here. I need to be able to record this again. When I made Dr. Nicole the host, I lost my host privileges. So it stopped recording. I believe it did. So Dr. Nicole, can we just pause for a moment for you to make me a host again, or for you to record it, but then it won't record on your out. Yeah, can you please make me a host again, Dr. Nicole?
Sure.
Someone says it shows that it's recording, but
it's showing that it's recording.
You see, okay, I'm wondering if it's going to come on your, it might come
I'm probably going to have it because I'm showing that it says stop recording, pause recording. So it is
okay. Recording. Being that you have host privileges, it's going to record on your cloud. So I just need to get the video later. I apologize for the pause. Do you have the ability to put on Terry's video as well? If not, no worries.
I'm sorry. Where is that at?
Dr. Nicole, don't worry about it. It's okay. It's okay. You can carry on. I don't know if Mr. Burrows needs to repeat the question, but I'm glad to know that it's recording, but it'll be on Dr. Nicole's Zoom.
Okay, I'm looking for. All right, I'm still here. That's the question while I play around and see if I can get your video on.
You don't have to worry about it.
You're just trying to hide. No, you can't hide it. You need to be on. No, I'm just kidding.
So the question was, what would be the best way to find the foundation/donors, especially if the student is looking for a school outside of the state?
So typically, the best place to start is actually on the website. And the foundation should also be listed there on the college website. If you cannot find it, you can always shoot an email to your admissions counselor and or to someone in the financial aid office and ask them where it is located and ask them for the link. And they will usually provide that to you. Or you can call as well and ask. So emails, and you'll notice that I'm always talking about doing everything via email versus phone, because you love to, emails usually get answered and it's documentation. So when you're working through all of this, emails are better versus phones. Sometimes phones don't get answered, or they're in a queue, or they're outsourced now. A lot of times you don't really reach anyone at the institution, but it could be helpful. Another thing that's helpful on the website is a lot of colleges now have bots on their websites when a chat bot will pop up and you can put your question right in there and tell them what you're looking for, and then they can direct you to it. But the website is where you want to start with that.
Thank you, Dr. Henderson. That's all the questions we have so far.
All right, I see a couple of more. I see that chat is increasing down there. I want to make sure I get the questions because it is a lot. I know how this works. All right, so we have the sources. Let's move on to the next one. Went the wrong way. So here's the next thing I want to talk a little bit about. understanding the college costs. And this is actually one of the biggest areas that I have seen that have led to increased amounts of loans, more loan money than students and families really need to take out. So this is really important to kind of understand just these really three different things you really need to understand. One is the total cost of attendance. And I'm sure you've heard that before, but this is important. Make sure you write it down. Make sure you go back and take a look at it. Total cost of attendance is what the college or institution will give you in terms of attending. That includes all the costs to attend college, not just the tuition. So that's tuition, that's fees, that's housing, that's room and board. Well, housing is room, board is food, and your books, travel, and personal expenses. So when a college is estimating what the cost is to attend, they take all of those areas into account. So they may give you a total cost of attendance and they may say it costs $70,000 to attend college X, Y, and Z, right? But maybe only 50,000 of that is the tuition and fees. The other 20,000, maybe all of those are the costs, okay? So that's what that total cost of attendance is, and that's what you kind of have to understand. Everything is included in the total cost of attendance. Now, that total cost of attendance can be broken into two costs you need to be aware of. Your direct billed costs, which basically when you think of what the college is going to bill you for, that is going to be tuition and fees, housing and food, room and board, or when you can also hear the term resident hall or meal plan. All of that is the same. Those are all billed if living on campus, right? And as freshmen, highly recommend all students should definitely be on campus that first year. Even if you can save money in an apartment, not recommended. And also most institutions now, because they realize the importance of that, require freshmen to live on campus. So don't fall into the live off campus that first year. Well, that's another conversation I'll have with you. Dr. Nicole believes that students should stay on campus all 4 years. And I'll tell you why if I have time in just a little bit. But so that's the direct bill cost. So look at those things. That's your tuition and fees. Fees are things that you can't control, you can't change, you can't opt out of it. It will be things like technology fee. It may be a library fee. It may be student athletics fee, not athletic, activities fees. Those are all the things, the fees that the college adds on top of tuition, which is for the academic classes that you will have to pay. You can't opt out of those. And the only ones you may be able to opt out of, so take a note on this, some colleges and universities may have a medical fee. And if you have insurance or your child has insurance, you may be able to opt out of that one, depending again on the college and the university and their policy. So take a note of that one. Other than that, all fees are covered. Students can't say, well, I never use X, Y, and Z. It doesn't matter. It's why they provide the services across the campus. And I tell parents and I tell students, that's why every free service that they offer on that campus, make sure that you use it because you really are paying for it. It's not really free. It's covered in all those fees that you are paying, right? So make sure if they have free tutoring and free writing lab and free whatever they offer, any services that's offered free, make sure you take advantage of it. Okay, so that's your direct bill cost. The other ones now, that's part of that total cost of attendance, will be indirect costs. These are not billed from the institution. These are variable costs that you actually can control. And that's your books, because the college doesn't bill for books. Students are responsible for obtaining their own books. Millions of ways to do that now. You can rent them now, you can get them online. You can buy used ones, you can rent used ones. It's totally different. You can save a lot of money doing it that way versus going into the bookstore on campus anymore, because those are the most expensive. Then you have travel. You can control that. That's local travel that may be needed, gas, if they have a car or whatever, and travel back and forth from campus, as well as personal expenses. And then if they're living off campus, that would include housing and food as well too. So then the housing and food costs would be in this category versus in the direct bill cost. The difference between these two categories and why it's important to understand it, it helps you understand what monies you have to have that you can't, that is not variable, that you must be able to pay at the beginning of the semester via grants, scholarships, and or loans. That's your build cost. The other costs are costs that you can control. Can you take out loans for all of the expenses? You absolutely can. All of college costs can be covered by any type of college funding. So it can be covered by scholarships, grants, and or loans. The key here is this is where the scholarships really come into play. Because if you can find additional monies and scholarships outside of what the college has given you and offered, that's how you start applying that to these other expenses that you have. And that's how you reduce the amount of loans that you will need to take out to handle those costs. And parents can do, you can do a lot of different things. You may decide, you know what, books we're going to just pay out of pocket for. Okay, if we don't have scholarships or whatever to cover it. Or if they're get to a point where they're off campus and you have to pay rent, you may decide, okay, we're going to just pay rent versus taking out a loan so they will have rent money every month. So it just depends on how you can manage that to cut the costs. All right. There's other ways that's variable as well too. You can look at not the freshman year, but sophomore year on, becoming a resident assistant. They call them RAs that are helping out in the residence hall. So they get housing free, they get meal plan free, and they get a small stipend. So just think of all that money you just cut right there if they become a resident assistant. It's a work, it's a job. It takes some work, but it does save money. And then the last one here is the expected family contribution. That is that EFC. I'm sure you've all heard of it now. And that is what the college will use in trying to determine how much money financial aid you need. Because if your EFC say, and you know, I used a $70,000 amount total cost of attendance, $70,000 for institution XYZ. Your expected family contribution is $10,000. So what the financial aid office will do is then they will be looking at a total cost of $60,000, which is what your financial aid should cover, not the entire 70, because based on your FAFSA, that's where that EFC comes from, the family is expected to contribute that $10,000. Again, let me stop right there. I see a few more questions, answer questions before we move on to the next piece of this. What other questions do we have, Mr. Burrows?
We have one more question that popped in.
Okay.
Is there an average variance between the total cost of attendance and the direct bill cost?
Read that again.
Is there an average variance between the total cost of attendance and the direct/bill cost?
It really isn't, because it's all individualized. Each college, university actually will determine what the total cost of attendance is based on the data that they collect from their students over the years. For instance, because they have to estimate what they think a student's personal expenses will be. They estimate what they think the cost of books are for the year. They estimate what the travel costs are based on what their student population looks like. So if the majority of their students are coming from other states or whatever, their travel may be higher than an institution where the majority of their students are local. So more than likely, state institutions, you will probably notice, will have lower total cost of attendance versus private institutions and colleges, simply because state institutions will more than likely attract more local state students, whereas private institutions attract students from across the country and actually across the nation. I mean, across the nation, across the world. They come from other countries as well too. So it's not a set amount. It depends on each individual institution. And then keep in mind, what they are giving you for, the only thing that's set is the tuition, fees, housing, and food. Those are not variable costs. Those are set. Well, they're variable a little bit in that depending on which residence hall you choose or assign to, the cost could be different. Some institutions, residence halls have different price depending on the amenities that they have. You know, like some of them are much nicer than others. Like I have one student going out who was out in Hawaii and one who was in California, and their resident hall had pools. Yeah, I know. We didn't have any pools when I was in college, but anyway, they have pools. So of course, those are a little bit more expensive than a resident hall that doesn't have a pool. If I was a parent, I'm not paying for a pool, but anyway, that's another conversation. So you can control housing there just a little bit, and also food costs because they have different meal plans. So although you can control how much you will pay in that, you don't control how much that will be. The variable costs you can control. You can control travel, personal expenses, books, and definitely housing and food if you're off campus. Does that make sense? All right, any other questions? If not, I'm gonna move on.
One more question.
Okay,
Yes,
cool.
the parent understood what you explained about the cost of attendance.
Good.
The parent asked, how can you get the EFC decreased?
Okay, so we're going to talk about that in just a little bit, but you cannot decrease your EFC. Once you have submitted your application, which is your FAFSA, into the federal government, the only thing they're doing is collecting the application, the information, they send it through the system, and then they spit out what that number is based on all the finances. It then goes to the college or university, and then that's when the financial aid department then works with all of that information. They are then responsible for doing all of the work around financial aid and award what you're eligible for, grants, work. They do the work, and financial aid offices do have the ability to make exceptions, changes, and they can basically change your EFC, if you like that term, internally, but it is not actually changed externally with the federal government, if that makes sense. It's all done at the college level. Okay, but I'm gonna talk about that in just a second. Let's get to that. All right, so I want to talk about these 4 key strategies first, and then I'm going to talk about that EFC when we look at this financial aid packet. I know we don't have much time. I'm going to rush through these last few slides because I told you this is the biggest one. There's a lot of information here, and I'm hoping to hit the key spots you need. Key strategies. You have to create a college funding plan. When I say that, it has to be 4 years. Right now, you're looking at that first year, that freshman year, your students are seniors, they're going into college. This is great. Once you figure out what this looks like for this first year, you should do the same thing now. Plan it out for 3 more years. So you know where the money is coming from, what's the plan, and how you're going to pay for this. You do not want to start this over from the beginning every single year. You'll miss deadlines, you'll miss money, you'll leave money on the table. Plan it now. And I know you're thinking, oh my God, do this. Yes, go ahead and do it now. It's easier while you're going through and setting it up to lay it out for 4 years. And then now this 4-year plan, you may have to change, edit, delete stuff, add stuff, but at least you have a template to work with. Create that funding plan. Look for the free money first that we talked about. That's the grant, that's the scholarship, that's the state money. Look for that first. That helps reduce how much loan money you have to take out. No deadlines, okay? When you go back and look at all of those 4 buckets that I talked about where the money comes from, remember, all of those 4 different buckets can all have different deadlines. I know, crazy, but it's true, all right? So you got your admissions deadlines, you had to hit all of those, and you got May 1 that you got to make your decision. But guess what? You can have a financial aid application deadline. You can have scholarship deadline for the institution college, right? And deadlines for scholarships outside. Then the state application grants can have another deadline. So you have to be aware of all of these different deadlines. The best way is organization, writing it down. Create a spreadsheet, write this stuff down now, and put dates. And if you create the spreadsheet now, that helps you because now that's how you create your 4-year plan. And then right now, I'm sure all of you are reviewing that financial aid packet. It's important to review that so you know exactly what you have, what's on there, and what you absolutely need, what's not covered, and then where else you need to look for other monies. And we talked about all of the other scholarship places to start looking for scholarship dollars, right? Outside of what the institution has offered. All right, so here's the main thing you want to look at when you review that financial aid notification. How much of that financial aid money that's on that award that you get is free money? You want to know because they're going to lay out, you need $50,000. Remember, no, $60,000, I think was the number we worked with. And I said $60,000 because they took the $10,000 from the EFC. And how much is that? But they're going to put everything on there. They're going to put the grants, the scholarships, and the loans all on there as well too, right? So you need to know is what is free money and what's not, what's loans. What types of the aids on there is based, the aid is based on need, which is based on merit. Because you can have scholarships on that could be a need-based scholarship or a merit-based scholarship. Why do you need to know this? Because if it's a merit-based scholarship, you got to know, is there any conditions? If it's need-based, what conditions are on this money? Do you get it? Does your child get it every year? Do they have to have a certain number of credits or classes they take? Is there a GPA requirement? Will eligibility change from year to year? These are questions you have to know. Just don't look at the financial aid award and say, oh my God, this is great. We got a $10,000 scholarship. Absolutely, celebrate that. Then dig and ask some more questions about that scholarship. What does it mean for them to keep that? If it's not listed somewhere, ask the questions. And another question, you want to make sure, will aid increase with tuition when tuition increases? Why? Because every institution is going to increase its tuition every year. They always do. Some say they're not going to do it. Some hold it steady. I shouldn't say that they don't all do. The majority of them do, right? So will the aid increase with tuition? Specifically, I know that my son received a full tuition scholarship, and that was one of my questions was, okay, if the tuition increases, does the scholarship go up with that? Or is the tuition scholarship based on an amount? Because if it's $4,000 or $5,000 to cover tuition, will it remain that $5,000? But if tuition goes up to $5,500, will it cover that? So you want to know that as well, too, because that'll help you with your planning when you're creating your funding plan. See, you see how it all goes together, right? And then that's when you can then now decide, will loans be needed? And how much loans do you want to take out? So you can kind of go through this process to help you figure that out. All right, let me get through a couple of these other ones. So here is, to get back to the question about changing the EFC, this is really what you're doing when you're not negotiating for more financial aid. You're really changing what that EFC may have indicated why you may not have qualified for other aid. So you can negotiate for more financial aid with the financial aid office. You would do that via email. Some institutions actually have a whole page out there and on their financial aid page about negotiating financial aid, and some have forms that they want you to complete versus an email. You will just need to ask about it. So there's different ways that you should, you can appeal it and what you should focus on. One is a merit-based appeal. What does that mean? Well, your child has already been accepted to this institution. They want your child to attend. So you use that as part of the appeal. You want to reiterate how great and wonderful your child is. And that's why they accepted them to this wonderful institution. That's where they want to attend. But guess what? If we don't get additional funding, they're not going to be able to attend. That's what you're going to be negotiating. You can also look at it from a non-traditional background. What does that mean? Okay, realistically, the history of higher education, the admissions process financial, all of it is based for the most part, if you look at the history of it, on a typical middle class suburban white family structure. That is the history of higher ed. So everything, all of the structures are built around that, even financial aid, the awarding, everything. So if you kind of don't fit that historic model, everything is kind of non-traditional. So you can apply, you can approach negotiating financial aid outside of that traditional model of how higher education and financial aid was established. All right. So that's an open bucket that you can use to your benefit in any way that you see fit. You can also get others involved. Remember when I told you back when you were looking at funding sources and you were reaching out to the department, like faculty or the department chair? Guess what? If you connect with a faculty member or the department chair, and they really said, yes, we would love for you to work with you. I have some research going on or whatever. Or, I would love for you to be part of our program here. They may be willing to also advocate for you and reach out to the financial aid office and say, hey, do you have any other additional monies for this student? We really like this student and we want to use them in this department. We want them in our department. So it's another means of getting allies and support in there. And I have seen students use that and it has worked as well too. And then again, also any special circumstances that may have happened since you filed that FAFSA. Okay, because right now we're in 22 and the FAFSA I think was a 2019, 2020, because it's 2 years old, the financial data that you're using when you're doing the FAFSA, right? Things may have changed in your life by then that's not on the FAFSA and the school will not know that. You have to tell the school any special circumstance, change in family dynamics, a move, health, change in structure, marriage, divorce, children, an illness, loss of job, loss of employment, or even underemployed is also another one. COVID did a lot of that. Some was total layoffs, and then some people had to take another lesser job, which could have been underemployed. Any of those circumstances can be used as part of negotiating for more financial aid. Again, I'm going to stop right there for any questions, and then we're going to finish up with this last couple of last ones.
Yes, I see someone says, are you making the appeal before accepting or after the student has accepted admission?
Typically, I recommend that the appeal should be done before accepting admissions. But because we are at the admissions deadline now, that would be a decision that should be made with the family. Will make that decision if they want to go ahead and accept. You know, this is where you're going to go, but you still want to negotiate and try to appeal the financial aid. You can still go ahead and accept and still do the appeal. It does not mean that it won't happen, but I just think you definitely have more leverage before you accept. That's just kind of the reality of it.
Okay, thank you. Someone else asked, my daughter reached out to the financial aid director before enrolling and was told no more grants/funds were available at the time. What should we do next?
So if there's nothing else additional in the financial aid office, remember the other places to look. You have the state, make sure you're looking at all the state funding. You have to look at the department and also the foundation. And then you have to focus on scholarships outside of the institution. So that's where you go back to all the local scholarships, and you have to start really working scholarships at this point, especially for seniors. You got May, June, there's scholarships all the way through the summer. I would get laser focused on scholarships out there. There's still a lot of scholarship money out there outside of the institution. Institutions only have so much money for their class. A lot of the money now is outside of the university or college where you're attending. All right. I do want to share one other piece of what I am going to be offering, since we just talked about scholarships now, is access to Scholly app, which is a scholarship search app that I am providing access to all students who are attending these chat. You choose all the families who are attending, and you can get this information to me. So Scholly is a scholarship app. How it works is your child will go out there and set up a profile. They put all their information in, finances, personal, academics. And then step 2, they get matched with scholarships. And then you now go in and start applying for these scholarships. Like I said, laser focus going in and applying for all of them, because now you have to try to find this money wherever it is out there. And you just start applying, and they will send you new scholarships every month. So this is another source of where your child or you and the family can find scholarships and work these scholarships as well too. The cost for Scholly, it is not free for this service. It is about $60 a year or so, but I have a partnership with Scholly, so I am going to be offering this to you free. And I will be sending out information on how to access it and set it up. All I need you to do is just email me, and I will provide all of that information to you, how to set up your profile, and I will give you a login code that you could use as well too. All right, and that's another means of finding some more scholarship dollars out there, because you got to look at the scholarship thing a lot of different ways as well too, because I'm sure there's scholarships there at the that you have in the guidance department, but you got to be looking outside. You got to be looking from all different angles for scholarships. All right.
Parents are so excited, Dr. Nicole. Thank you, amen. Thank you, thank you. They are so so grateful for the access to Scholly.
Perfect. Yes, I will help with that and make sure I get everyone access to that. Oh, and this access will be good for a full year. So you can use it starting right away for that freshman year, but then you can continue to use it once they get into college, because scholarships are out there continuously. So they can continue to be looking for money and finding scholarships and setting up a plan of scholarships that they're going to look for even for that sophomore year, that junior, and that senior year. You'll be surprised. Some scholarships they may find may be renewable. Some may be offered every year, and then they can go back and find that. All right, so that's the end.
There's another question. Basically, they're saying their child has applied to many scholarships and hasn't heard from anyone yet. What should they do?
Keep applying. There's a lot of applications. Take a look at what types of scholarships you are applying to and where. Make sure you're paying attention to local scholarships, that's local where you are, versus the ones that are only online, because the ones that are online do get more applications. Local scholarships do not. Local, when I mean fraternities, sororities, churches, credit unions, banks, local organizations like your Rotary Club, all of those local ones have scholarships, and they often don't get enough applications for those. Look there versus the ones you just find online. Also, look for scholarships that require essays. If they require essays, they also have less applications. If you are applying to scholarships that say just put your name and your email, that's really not a scholarship, that's a drawing. And they're getting hundreds of thousands of names they're pulling a name from. So those are difficult to win. Someone gets it, but it's not your typical scholarship. So those are some things you can pay attention to.
A parent wants to know, can you repeat it again? How do they get the free Scholly login?
They're going to just send me an email, and you can share my email information. I'm going to put it up here in just a second.
Yes. I shared it, Dr. Nicole.
Yes, please share that with me. All right. Yes, share that, because the fourth workshop that we need to do now, that I just want to share with this now, is really about college readiness, because you're getting them all to that freshman year. And that is the fourth workshop that I'll be doing this summer with parents around getting your child college ready. And this college readiness workshop series is actually developed off of my research that I did around helping students under how we need to understand how students are not being successful. And then we created this program specific around where the gaps were and what they needed. All right, so here's my contact information for that. For the scholarship for the Scholly, I will have that. Send me an email. You can email me right now and I can start sending those out to everyone. The Smart Start College Readiness Workshop, I'll be doing that. We will start in July. It's 4 weeks and it takes parents through all of the information and skills that your student need and you need in order to make sure your child knows all the ins and outs of college. And one of the main things we also do is making sure you understand how to set up that funding plan for 4 years and how to avoid loans after that freshman. And then what happens after this freshman year? Because think about it this way, I know parents probably don't realize this, but you're doing that FAFSA, you're doing all the financial aid and everything. Guess what? In 6 months, you're gonna have to do another FAFSA because it opens in October for that sophomore year. So this is an ongoing process. And in this workshop, I help parents understand how to create a calendar of those things of what you need to do with appropriate deadlines is also important. All right, let's get to the rest of the questions.
Yes, so someone asked, should we be concerned when scholarships request Social Security information and tax information? I'm always hesitant.
Absolutely. There's no reason for them to know or need your Social Security number. If they ask for your Social Security number, if they ask you to pay anything, do not move forward with that. Scholarships do not ask for Social Security numbers. That more than likely could be close to a scam or something very scammy. Now listen, there's a difference between paying someone services to help with services to help you with something. I'm not saying there's not organizations out there that don't help with college planning or help with scholarships or help with scholarship essays. Paying for that is one thing. But if they're saying that you have won a scholarship or you're going to get a scholarship, but you have to pay some kind of money in order to get the scholarship, then that's not what you should be doing, not to receive a scholarship. And definitely not a Social Security number. Do not do that.
Hey, Dr. Henderson, follow up to that, the second part of the parent's question. With the tax information, if a scholarship asks for what's the family's income, that's something that they can provide, correct?
You can provide that because it could be a need-based scholarship. So they could have income guidelines on who they will award the scholarship to. I've seen a lot of those. Sometimes organizations will have a criteria that we want to award this to a certain family who has need, what they call need versus a family who they don't. They get to make that decision if they're awarding the scholarship. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand that they all, just like some set up a scholarship if you can play a certain sport, they can do that as well too. So you should be able, if they ask you for information, I would not submit any of my documentation until you have been awarded the scholarship and you can verify that. But if they just ask you for an income level or something like that, that's okay.
We are wrapping up. Are there any other burning questions? We do have Dr. Nicole's email address, but these are some amazing questions.
Yes, excellent questions. I'm available as well too. Like I said, shoot me the email. I'll be happy to answer questions as well too. Try to connect you with resources as well too that we don't have or others. Anything that or colleagues that I may have at other institutions, I will do that as well.
Dr. Nicole is definitely good people, very connected, very wonderful resource. So I don't see any other questions. I will follow up with you all and share this video And if there's other information about your summer course that you have, Dr. Nicole, if you all are interested in signing up for her summer course that she mentioned as well, feel free. I think she's just a great connection to have while your children are in college. And even if you have other ones coming up, I know some of you parents have juniors and sophomores and freshmen. So this is also good information to know for them when they are coming up the ranks. Mr. Burrows, did you have anything else before we dismiss?
No, thank you guys for joining. Thank you again, Dr. Henderson.
Okay, one other thing before we dismiss, I have one thing. I forgot. I would love if I can drop this evaluation in the chat.
Yes. Yeah, drop it in the chat. And when I send the video, I will.
Okay, we can do that. You can do it with the video.
Okay.
We'll do it that way.
Okay.
So yes, I'm going to do the evaluation. I'll send that with you as well. Yes, this is recording. I see it now. And I'll make sure I send that to you and we can just drop that all together.
Okay, that sounds great. So feel free to stop. I don't know if it stops the recording automatically on your end, but I know I don't have access to stop the recording.
I can stop. It is still recording. Do you want me to stop it now?
Yes, please. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, it's officially stopped.